Hello, this is MeowMixFan, and I am commentating over my speedrun of Super Monkey Ball Adventure Story Mode 100% in 1:23:34. This is post-commentary. I just wanted to give a commentary over a 100% run, just to explain what's going on and stuff like that, so people can watch and understand what's happening. Since I don't intend on improving this at the moment. So starting out, it's pretty straightforward. Now, during this mission, you're going to see me grab some bananas. The banana routing in this category is pretty tight, so I really can't miss many. The first time we're going to be using them is on the first trip to Zootopia, so that's fairly soon. But here at the end, there's a pretty cool jump right to the end, and you're going to see me just kind of run right across and quickly turn between those hives to get there quickly. Now, after this camera mission is a trick called Rock Jump that basically allows you to go through Jungle Island backwards, which saves a couple minutes. It's probably the hardest trick in this run, and I got it very smoothly in this run, thankfully. Actually gulped this split by half a second, which is crazy. Okay, there's something pretty new here that just got found a few months ago. You don't actually have to try out chants when you learn them. If you fall out, you'll just automatically learn them. So I fall out in a specific area in the water, so I respawn up by the next mission. And that skips doing the chant for Boxing Ball and breaking the boulders to get back up here. Saves a couple seconds. And it's pretty easy, so it's definitely worth it. And this cannon shot here skips going around the entire island. Fairly straightforward. We fall down off the lighthouse, just to be right next to the naysayer. That fall off is surprisingly easy to mess up and just kind of fly away and die. It's actually technically faster to not die here, but it's hard to move optimally to get here faster than just falling out does, so I just fall out. And of course, when we're flying here, we try to cut corners as much as possible. We seem to be turning pretty early. You kind of have to have an idea of where the hitboxes for the eggs actually are. And I'm not quite positive about this, but I believe the lower you are when you get next to the nest, the faster the birds go to it. So I try to get pretty close to it without bumping into it. Unfortunately, I had to wait here for about a second or so for the mission to end. Don't really have too much control over that if the birds don't cooperate. Alright, just get those bananas while the naysayer is doing his scream. Doesn't waste any time to get them. In this mission, you may be aware that if you hit the gongs, sometimes you'll just kind of fly away and potentially fall off. If you aim in such a way that you land on the platforms before you hit the gongs, you won't fly away, so that's just a way to make this consistent if you can aim at the right spot. Of course, there's also the risk of aiming too low then, and well, that's the death sentence. We use that cannon to get back because it's faster than moving, typically. During this bird mission, you basically just have to wait a minute while protecting the flowers. But the birds are very slow at eating the flowers, so you can spend a lot of time just grabbing bananas. And of course the first donation, banana donation guy is right over there, and we have enough bananas, but we're actually going to do that at the very end of the run, because it is a lot better to just have extra bananas until the end. The only spots where bananas are actually going to be tight, potentially, are Zootopia and Jungle Island, just because of how the category is routed. And then we can just kind of leave early and stop over by the loading zone to save the time of moving, because the bird will take forever to actually kill any of the flowers. Now in this area, it's going to seem a bit strange what I do. So basically, because of the rock jump, the game is going to normally softlock, because we're going to be playing the cutscene and doing the mission within one time of entering the palace, which the game doesn't know what to do if that happens. But you're going to see me flatten one of the monkeys in the mission, and then travel over to where the chant monkey appears, and for some reason, if the mission ends while you're over there, it doesn't softlock. And the mission doesn't end until that guy gets all the way up and backs away, so it gives us enough time to get away. And right there I botched the chant. It's very easy to accidentally hit A before hitting Woo 3 times. Just because it can just, if you hit right too early, that doesn't register. And A will redial. So the first trip to Zootopia, we're pretty much just going to do this mission and then all of the roller coaster section. We're actually going to be coming back to Zootopia 3 times because of how overriding works out. And that was actually a very good mission there. You saw I fell off the cliff and got pretty close to the exit. You want to be as close to the exit as possible when the monkey talks to you. So the roller coaster is an interesting section of the run because we're actually at the start on a cycle because we want to do the saving the children mission within 1 lap of the roller coaster, which is pretty easy. This first child is the hardest part, but if you miss them you can just go back and still make it in time. I fly pretty high here to avoid hitting the roller coaster. I'm gonna have to wait for the coaster anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then I just go ahead and use sticky ball here to get it learned. I don't believe it's actually necessary to, because I'm gonna be falling out anyway. But I just kind of do it anyway. It only loses a couple seconds just to do safety. This coaster mission, you can actually do it a bit faster than I did it in this run. If you get that first car off earlier, you can get the second one off right there. And you can actually have this mission end when I knock off the second to last car. It's pretty tricky though, I've only ever done it a couple times. And I just fall off after I knock off, after the mission ends, because it's going to respawn me next to where I need to be next. Pretty much the way this area works is if you fall out in the water closer to the side where you enter, you respawn there. If not, you spawn up by this guy. And this is the only real part of the run where I go on a major diversion for bananas. You don't do any of these stages, but there's a lot of bananas in them, and it's just more worth it to go out of our way with current routing. You see I do some kind of risky movement here. If I fall out before I get all the bananas I get, I'll probably just exit normally, because there's more than enough bananas in this part that it's more worth it just to grab extras later. But if I miss enough, it's a reset.
Ready, go.
I actually took a bunch of bananas out of the routes. I used to do fun run as well to get bananas, but I decided to cut it out to save some time, which makes banana routing a lot more important. Fun run took a lot of time. We do a pretty quick grab of the 3 banana bunches to the left here. I think in this run I missed the middle one, I had to go back. Yeah. It's kind of tricky to get them all in one run, but it's only a slight time loss if you have to go back. And then checkmate here is super lenient with your movement, so as long as you don't horribly mess up, you're fine. You saw there I almost fell, but it was lenient, so I was able to get back on. And I just X after I grab this bunch. The racing mission on the coaster is actually kind of cool. We just kind of follow it for most of the path, but there's a couple points where you can actually get around it safely. I don't go at the first possible opportunity because the risk of death is very high. It's going to be at this bump up here, you can get over it, but you die most of the time when you try that. So instead I just go around at this dip because it goes to the left and you can barely get around it. It's not too difficult, but it's really easy to mess up. The game doesn't actually check how far ahead you are, it only cares about how far behind you fall, so you can just do this. It does track to make sure you follow the path though, so you can't just fly around, unfortunately. And then we have enough bananas so we can do that. And of course the last thing in this area is the picture, which we use the cannon to do this. and you're gonna see that I fly way over to the side before getting to the spot. The reason for that is that if you go to the side like I do, then you approach the picture from a certain angle, and from that angle you can actually land on the platform. And landing on the platform to warp to Moonhaven saves about 5 seconds rather than falling out. And you see me go to the corner before I warp, that's to, you see how Baby's sliding there. If Baby falls off, then you get a weird glitch and it wastes a lot of time to warp over to Moonhaven, because you have to like warp away to Jungle Island or Zootopia and then warp back, because the game will think that you're in Moonhaven. So let's start at Moonhaven here. I actually skip all the missions here and just go straight to the levels. To unlock Rufus, you can't actually do Rufus's mission, but when you talk to Rufus, the Chant Monkey appears and you can learn Scalar Ball, and that's necessary to finish up Zootopia and Moonhaven. Freewheeler has a skip at the start. If you angle yourself right, you can skip about half the stage. And I go a bit out of my way to grab these bunches here. They don't waste much time, and frankly they help me stay in control because I'm not going super fast, so that's a plus. This last part can be a bit tricky, because sometimes you'll just go through the goal and it won't count and you'll die. That's really sad when that happens. But Skid Slalom's the last stage that you do here. Only real tricky part of this in story mode is that you have to line yourself up to get bananas, which is super easy to screw up, and then when you try to correct it you can really easily throw yourself off and potentially die. I believe it all went well on this though. This is also a stage where you can just kind of go through the goal and it won't register and you'll die sometimes, so you have to have a quick reaction time to not fall off in case that happens. And I should mention, you can do the same thing I did for Boxing Ball for Scalar Ball, where you'll fall off and then you can respawn, fall off and touch an area where you respawn by the Naysayer. But it's a bit tricky to actually save time with in story mode, RTA, because the Chant Monkey to warp you to Monkitropolis appears in the same spot. So you have to be very fast later on to actually take advantage of that. The Arid automaton is fairly easy overall, but there's a couple things that can go wrong. Quick note, this is pretty straightforward, but if you aim just a little lower than the top, you land right by where the picture is, so that's a pretty easy way to not have to ride the gear up. Just gotta grab these banana bunches around here. They're really fast. And I believe that I bumped off the guy and died here. Yeah, you don't want to do that. I meant to hold back a bit more there, but unfortunately I did not hold back enough. Dying there doesn't lose much time because it respawns you by the other missions. You can just do it and you don't have to go back across the area later. So it only wastes a couple seconds. A couple things to note on this mission. First of all, the trampoline on the far left has one less bounce than the others, so you want to hit that one last, or just avoid it once. And then on the last go around I go for a double, hitting two of them at once. It saves it one bounce. I got one there. And if you do that mission last, then for some reason the camera's a bit different, but if you do it earlier then the camera is just straight on, so that's nice. Also, I wanted to do the mission with the pipe guy again, but I bounced from his head, so I just opted to do this mission instead. This mission's fairly straightforward, but it's worth noting that the camera after it is strange. I've noticed that if you're pretty high up, then it tends to be a straight down camera, but also this time it was a straight down camera, and I don't really know why. So I just kind of don't understand why that works. And then this mission you pretty much just do as intended. The second banana bunch isn't that easiest to get, but once you've done it a few times, it's pretty easy to get without dying. And the fire automaton is one of the trickiest parts of the run, as it is one of the trickiest parts in casual play. So there's a few strats you can do here. I'm obviously doing the fastest one in this run. So everything pretty much hinges on the cycle of the torch moving around the bowl at the top. So at the beginning here, I have to move relatively fast, but to be honest, I could make a lot of movement mistakes and still make the cycle that I'm going for. So yeah, you can see me waste a little bit of time going for bananas while I'm climbing for the toolbox mission and the fire mission. There's really only one thing that can go wrong that can make you miss the cycle, and every cycle is about 20 seconds, so it's a big deal if you miss it. Also worth noting, I think I'm the only person who's ever gone for this strat with the fastest cycle. The other strat would be to just bring the fire as intended to the end of that mission. Alright, here, I'm gonna get set on fire and grab that bunch, and you don't actually have to kill this naysayer for any joy points, because I guess they just forgot to assign joy points to the naysayers in this area. And when he's stunned, you can just go around him and climb up higher. Alright, so up here, you can technically skip this naysayer, but it's really not RTA viable. So instead, I have to do this thing where I quickly light the torch and then kill the naysayer, and then I have to get back on fire and onto the next cycle of platforms. If I don't make this platform cycle, then I will miss the cycle of the torch moving around the bowl. You see how close it was there. You can get it a bit faster, but it is extremely tight, usually. But it saves 20 seconds if you get that, and you get the torch first try, so it's very important. Unless you go for the other strat, in which case it doesn't matter. Right, so the strat here, I believe the guy didn't feel like talking to me for a while. Doesn't matter because I have to wait for the torch anyway. See how much extra time I have. I wait a little bit here so that I don't run out of fire too early. So you just go around the water here and go to the high section. And then whenever the torch passes over the platform I came from, I roll around the water and bounce off of the torch to get across. The other strat, you have to hit the torch at the other halfway point, so it takes an extra cycle to get around. That strat's a lot harder, but it's really not that bad once you practice it. And now we're going to go to Captain Simeon's mission. And instead of just climbing around, we fly for it for the first 3 balloons. You can grab them from pretty far away, luckily. And there's a fan that pushes you back up high enough to get up here really easily. So once you have a consistent way to get down there, you're pretty much good to get back up. Important thing to note though, you do not want to fly directly into the balloons. If you do, you will like plummet out of control and die. I don't know why the balloons work like that, but it's killed runs before. Also, of course, grabbing bunches as I fly around, just to mention that. And the last 2, you can fly for the second to last one, but it's really not worth it, so I just run over and grab it. And then after the mission, I go back into the air and fly straight to the message balloon. I didn't feel like taking the balloon there, but luckily I caught myself before I flew off. I actually turned a bit tighter than I wanted to here, but it worked out. Your movement stops, like you lose all momentum as soon as you finish a mission, so you can just use that to plummet straight down next to the guy. And I got the platform cycle started before I talked to him, so I didn't have to wait for it. And you can just fly back up to him and give the dude the balloon. Which, it actually bases it on the top of the balloon being next to the guy, so you can just walk right here and give it to him. It's pretty cool. Then it's back to Zootopia. Now you might notice I'm not doing the Post-commentated mission here, like we would in any percent. It doesn't matter much, but it does save a little bit of time just from the extra movement to do it later. So the way I routed this category was that all of the stuff that you save the most time by coming back with Hoverball is done at the end. Which is also a lot of the hardest stuff, because you can skip a lot of stuff with Hoverball. So I actually do barely any of the maze on this trip. Just the camera mission, the bumper cars, and I kill 2 of the naysayers. And of course grab bananas as I go. There really isn't a good time to kill this naysayer, so I just do it at this point because I don't really know where else I would. The only other time I could really do it reasonably would be during the later mission, but I'm sticky then, so it'd be slower. Tightrope mission, it's pretty straightforward. Just gotta go across. If you're careful, it's not that bad. The bumper cars are fairly annoying because they're pretty much random. You'll notice I chanted before I talked to the guy. After you talk to somebody, then you can't chant for a little bit, so it's faster in most cases to do a chant for a mission before you talk to the guy, unless that prevents you from talking to them or something. That was a fairly decent bumper car mission. Could have been better, could have been worse. Then I go ahead and kill this naysayer before entering the Fat Cat building. Which, of course, the Fat Cat building has the biggest skip in the game, since the game doesn't check to make sure you have 60 joy points before before doing the Fat Cat mission. So you can just skip to the top. And you can abuse slopes in the maze a lot to do stuff like that. That skips fighting the naysayer right then and there. You just fight it when it's more convenient. So for the Fat Cat building itself, it has gone through a lot of changes over time. I used to actually do it with Hoverball, but you can save so much time in the maze by using Hoverball that I actually just put it here because it's actually as fast, if not faster, to do it with the regular Fat Cat skip. So throughout the entire Fat Cat building, up to the top, the platform at the top is spinning. That gets to the stages, and that is a 14-second cycle if you miss it. So killing the naysayers quickly is really important. And of course the elevator that you're going to be seeing just a bit is also moving during this time. That first naysayer, you might have noticed I missed I believe it was a second punch for a little bit. That actually made me have to skip out on the banana bunch on the elevator in this run. And the skip here, if you just roll off, you can go through that because that side of the wall isn't solid. And then you just saw me do it earlier, but if you fall off of the ceiling with Sticky Ball, you can abuse gravity a bit to angle yourself to another area like that. And I missed the fastest you can do this, which would be going straight to that stage, loop it. So instead I started with Plug Hole. And the spinning platform is still moving while you're in these stages. So I actually do specific strats within the stages so that I make a cycle. The only way I believe that I could save a cycle on this is if I did fast breadbasket. But the thing about these stages is that from my testing, if you die in any of these stages, there's a chance the game crashes when you beat the area. When you leave the area, I should say. So I play the stages as safe as I can without losing too much time. So you see ZZ stop, I go way over to the side and that doesn't really lose any time whatsoever. I also slowed down at the end there to get the extra bunch. That's something I just added a bit ago. Also, you don't have to use sticky ball to go around the edges here, but it's more consistent and you get the bunches instead of having a chance of missing them if you just roll around, so I think it's more worth it that way. Now, like I said, I don't do fast breadbasket. That is the only thing I believe that wastes a cycle of the spinning platform. I just do this instead. It just doesn't feel worth it at the moment. And then I play Loop It extremely safe because it doesn't lose any cycles. And the collision in Loop It has a tendency to just kill me if it feels like it. So I just avoid the chance of death by slowing down at the second and third ramps. Plus that gets me a couple extra bananas. So usually you just bounce across to the third and then bounce to the goal, but doing this instead doesn't lose any time in story mode. You're going to see the platform spinning is going to be right next to me when I get out, and that's as I'd planned it. You can just wait here and the elevator pop you on top. It's worth noting, in most cases, if you're barely after the elevator, it's still worth it to wait for it. But if it's, like, worst case scenario, you can roll off with sticky ball and land on the center, which wastes a couple seconds, but it avoids having to wait for the spinning platform if it's, like, worst case scenario. And the game always lags really bad right here. I don't know how to fix it. Yeah, this mission we pretty much just do as intended. Except early. And this basically allows us an extra 20 joy points after we get Hoverball, which is quite a lot. So on this trip to Moonhaven, only actually going to be in the entrance to do everything else that's there except for the oil balloons mission. Starting with the sets of 3 switches. I got a bit caught on the top of that ramp there, but I don't believe it actually wasted any time because I still made the spinning platform cycle I needed to make later. You can just kind of jump across these gears without worrying about them because you have enough speed. Got a bit of a bounce there, but would make it a bit tighter to make the spinning platform cycle, but I still made it, so it doesn't matter. Later mission, pretty straightforward. You can only run up the ramps with sticky ball active if you go across the rotating platform. So this is cycle based for the entire time you're in this area. So I was kind of close to missing this cycle, but I made it, so it's all good. And I missed a banana, barely. Unfortunate. And then you have to do the Rufus mission before you can advance to Monkitropolis. So something that was just found in the process of making the 80% tests is that if you quickly chant, or start a chant and exit the chant menu when you pick up the monkeys and when you put them down, you can move faster. Also, I missed that round. You can start to move faster. So you see that I moved earlier than normal there because I quickly hit chant and exited. I don't do it for when I pick up the monkeys because it's a bit tighter window, so it's really not worth doing. It's kind of tricky to actually effectively chant and exit the menu, so a couple times here I kind of had the chant menu up for a bit, but it still saved a little bit of time to do it that way rather than waiting. You see, third try there, I got up the ramp. Getting up the ramp is the trickiest part because these monkeys do mess up your controls when they're on you. And you gotta make sure you're not on one of the stages if you do the chant thing there, because you really don't want to enter one of the stages. That would waste a lot of time. Alright, so I do almost all of Monkitropolis in one visit. The only thing that gets pushed back until later is the mission that opens up in the entrance area after you have beaten Slipknot. Which I'll explain why I routed it that way later on. Starting out here, the important things to note, the noise things of course push you away, which is a blessing and a curse. Specifically this one in the alcove here is definitely the worst one, because it just pushes you back into the alcove like it got me here. You want to try to stay closer to the edge to avoid that, otherwise something like that will happen and you'll just lose some time. The rest of them aren't bad to deal with though. Camera mission's about how you'd expect. You just get the picture. There are a couple things that are noteworthy about this mission. First of all, you have to make sure that the monkeys you're carrying don't fall into the pit in the prison, because if that happens then they're stuck there and you have to restart the mission pretty much. Another thing, the monkeys get pulled into the cells whenever they go into the inner circle here, so you have to make sure that they touch it, not that you touch it. And the last thing worth mentioning is that the monkeys will only make progress in entering their cells while you're close enough to them. So when you're doing this mission, watch for which cell is the last one, because if it's one that is closer to the left side here, then you're going to need to stay a bit further back when you're leaving, so they'll actually walk in. Otherwise they'll just be standing there, nothing will happen until you move closer to the monkey who's going into the cell. Also, I moved towards the monkeys in such a way that they are lured away from the manholes they try to jump into. If they get into the manhole, obviously you're going to lose time because they're going to go to one of the two places where they aren't originally, which is the one that is directly to the left of where you enter and the one that is directly to the right of where you enter the level. This one can really easily get into the manhole if you're not careful. I kind of hesitate a little bit to make sure he's not standing on top of it when I approach, because if he is standing on top of it, he'll just jump in immediately. And since he's the last one, there is not a quick backup. Alright, so then there's a skip here to exit, or to skip the stages, which in this run, unfortunately, I had to go for a backup version of it. What you want to do is bounce on this street light here to get to the other one, but unfortunately I hit the wrong part of the street light and roll off before I could reposition myself. So you can just use that burst of sound power to boost yourself up here instead. And then bounce across these two lights just like you would for the other version. And then you just gotta carefully bounce on this one to get to the loading zone. It's not too tricky, but it's very easy to mess up, as I did in this run. For the highway, the only things we're going to be doing here for the first trip are the race and the factory mission, which are the only two that are actually required to advance to Congrilla. So you can skip this text whenever he finishes the word inspector. I try to line myself up here to finish Speed Evolve, and if you time it just right and quickly enough, then you'll actually get hit by a car right as you start the mission, and that'll give you a boost of speed. Unfortunately, I missed it there. But this mission is very straightforward. I get one banana bunch during it, and that's the only thing worth noting. So, yeah. I bumped a little bit on the wall there. That's typically something you want to avoid, because it slows you down. If it happens like it did there. And then I had to get this bunch in the third lap, because I was in an awkward position on the second lap. Usually you want to go for that bunch on a lap where there are no cars in your way, so you can just grab it and keep going. But I didn't play it right there, so I got kind of stuck. It's a fast bunch, so you want to get it. And then for the factory mission, you can skip all of it. The game actually only checks to make sure that you get close enough to the trigger for ending it. Also, I just kind of zoned out for a second during the run there, and I forgot to talk to the guy. So yeah, you can just kind of climb up to a certain part on this pipe and drop off to the end. I like to look at the shadow to line myself up. If you're too close to the pipe itself in the middle of the platform, then it'll bump you off. So you gotta make sure you're close enough to the edge, but not too far off the edge. And you don't actually have to turn this. If you're gutsy, you can just jump off of the other pipe and land on the trigger, but it barely saves any time. I lost a little bit of time in this room because I bumped on that spinning thing And see, I missed this cycle because of that. Now, this section is actually one of the trickiest in the game to optimize. Just because the first 3 missions that I do here are stupid, to put it bluntly. This one, the cannon's super finicky. I actually had a bit of trouble with one of the spots getting it to aim just right. I believe it was the penultimate one. For the most part here though, I just use visual cues and I try to get as close as I can to them. You'll notice there, right here, I'm just going to fire immediately. You can shoot to 2 of these islands that are all on a row at the same spot. So I watched to check if the robot would reach the second island while I was getting on the first one, so I knew I could just shoot immediately. That's a minor optimization you can do during this mission. And I had a bit of trouble getting the right height here. This front island's kind of tricky because there isn't really too good of a visual cue. And then right here I just completely blundered aiming for this one. I don't know what was going on, but I just couldn't get it right. And you can aim this one all the way up. I was just having trouble getting horizontally lined up. It's like I said, it's very finicky. You can just barely tap it and it'll move like a billion degrees. And I just kind of shot this one super fast because I wanted to not lose too much time. I'm very lucky that worked because I did not spend quite enough time angling that. I try to slow down as I break these boxes to grab the bananas. I missed most of them, but I got a couple. When the cutscene in this area plays, I hold neutral on the control stick to not screw up the camera. And you can grab these bananas and get to the chant monkey before he's able to be taught to. For this mission, I roll over to the first robot and I try to activate hoverball and hit the robot before the chant monkey talks. See, I got it there. And then the rest of this is just iffy because these things are on cycles, but they adjust if they notice you. And they sometimes just don't explode when you hit them. I kind of took a risk here and just jumped off, but that worked out really well actually. Here I couldn't really do much because I need to jump over to the next island, so falling off there didn't actually waste any time because I was going to wait until I got here anyway. That one has a tendency to sometimes just not blow up when you touch him. This one I just kind of got distracted and messed up. I was supposed to get him as I got onto the island. And this last one tends to be pretty lenient, so it's nice. And you really don't want to fall off of the island before that mission ends because the camera will try to center behind you and it'll get caught on the island if you fall off. Right here, I was trying to... The top of the balloon has to be near the bottom of the tree, which is really annoying to angle, but luckily that quickly rebounded. The way I try to do normally is going over the bridge and holding back so the balloon launches in front of me towards the ground. And then this second tree that I go for is definitely the trickiest. I kind of jump towards the island and then hold back, and it tends to work like that. Depending on the camera though, it can be pretty tricky. The rest of these you can pretty much just jump next to the island, and most of the time they'll work. Unfortunately, I approached that one a little too fast, so the balloon got caught. Just with how it was moving before I got there. And then I end it with the tree that's closest to the next mission, for obvious reasons. I'm gonna be honest, I've never bothered time if it's actually fastest to do this next mission in the order that I do it. But that's the way everyone does it, so I just kind of follow it. The only thing really worth noting here is that I grab a banana bunch on the way to the next area. It's not a hard banana bunch to grab mid-flight, so it doesn't waste time, so why not get it? Yeah, you'll see the time loss here. That's from a combination of the screwed up cannon shots and the messing up on the robot mission. I'm a bit cautious with this fire nacer because there was one run I did where for some reason on the second hit the naysayer just didn't register that it was supposed to be on fire and it didn't die. And I finished the run and I was at 90 whatever percent complete and I had to go back and figure out what went wrong. So I like to wait until I can see that the naysayer is on fire before I leave it. And these areas of Congrilla are really important in banana rotting. You're gonna see I jump over to that building over there to grab the couple bunches instead of taking the path with one banana. The mirror mission here. The far side has a column of 7 mirrors, the near side has a column of 5 mirrors. I get them in that order. I try to get the first one by itself and then do the others in pairs, where I bounce off the bottom and then hit the top and repeat. And then I go for the column of banana bunches in the middle. And then I go for the other side from top to bottom. Gotta make sure you don't re-hit any of the mirrors, because that would lose a lot of time. Got a bit out of line there, but I managed to realign on the way back up. And you're gonna notice I kind of do this weird pattern where I go in and out of Scalar Ball. For some reason when you're shrinking, and a little bit after that, you descend more quickly than when you're big. I don't really know why, but it's good to know. And very important to do, when you finish this mission, make sure you touch down on the fan, because if you don't get close enough to the fan, then it doesn't turn off, and you will most likely die when you're doing this crab mission. You gotta be pretty careful on this mission too. The crabs can just kinda kill you if you're not careful. I actually had a run shortly before this one that was actually more ahead than this one was. Die to a crab, doing an instant 180 and throwing me off the stage, which was unfortunate. Also, yeah, you can't carry the crabs over the fan or else they'll escape for some reason. So you gotta go around the sand. I just kind of ran into this crab's face for some reason. I don't know what I was thinking. I was paranoid about it killing me. And then it's just the naysayer and the message balloon here, and that's it for this section. know how I got that jump there, but that was nice of the game to let me have that, because I definitely should have fallen. You can just kind of jump over this fence, even though there's really not ground under you. It's convenient. And in this section of Congrilla, I could get through it faster, but I decided to route it this way to get a couple extra banana bunches that don't lose much time. So I do the camera, and then I jump off, grab some bunches, donate bananas, and then climb back up. I get an extra 10 bananas out of it that barely lose any time. So honestly, I could route in more here, and it would probably be a good idea. Get rid of some other ones. I'll say you can boost off of Mac there to get up instead of going around. It's really funny. Yeah, go around to this platform and under this bridge to get 2 more bunches on the way to Mac. Got a bit of a bump there that wasted a little bit of time, but no big deal. And when it comes to this mission, the most important thing is just to make absolutely sure that the patches actually go on the leak. If you miss them, or they just don't work enough times, then the thing will turn back on and you'll have to restart the mission pretty much. Which is extremely frustrating when that happens, so you really want to avoid that. And then Slipknot. I do Slipknot a little bit slowly so I can get some extra bananas. Unfortunately in this run I missed a bunch at the end because I bounced off of the eagle pole, I believe. And then actually go straight back to the highway after that instead of warping away. Because if I did the highway later, then I would have to do the level skip again, which would lose some time. This is probably one of my favorite portions of the routes of this category. Because it's one of the few places in the game where I actually rearranged mission order for the sake of really creative movement between missions. And this was, I believe, the biggest actual mistake on my part of the run. I also saved this mission failure to use hoverball, and I accidentally turned off sticky ball while I was too close to the edge, so I fell off. You'll see what I was trying to do right here. You just gotta climb up this really tall vertical part, and then when you're at this point you can use hoverball to fly around and jump onto the weird accordion part of the factory. And from here you can just turn back on sticky ball to get straight to the pipe that leads to the top of the factory. Pretty much skipping the entire mission. And then this might look strange, but I actually use Speedy Ball whenever I get off of the pipe. And this is where that cool routing that I mentioned comes in. Because you can actually just jump off of the factory and land back on the highway closer to the next mission than you would if you fell out and then just moved normally. Which saves a few seconds. I don't remember it being too much, but it does save time. And this unfortunately was the biggest time loss in the run. Robots didn't exactly cooperate. I did get all of them. But in the second set here, going backwards here is faster than going the normal way to get to the next set. For some reason one of these guys just didn't explode when I touched it. I did not recognize it in time, and I ended up wasting a lot of time because of that. This mission is supposed to have been done a long time ago at this point. See, I definitely touched him there, and he just doesn't explode for some reason. I ended up pretty much doing an extra loop backwards. What would normally happen is that I would finish this mission around the starting line and then just go backwards from there, but I had to continue on and find that robot who just didn't explode, and you'll see how much time that wasted. Because now I still have to go back and get him. For some reason he went like into the wall a little bit. I'd never seen that before. And I finally got him, luckily right next to the mission. And then I do the litter mission here because I actually warp away from Monkitropolis after this mission, because that way I don't have to move back from the litter mission to the exit of the highway, which saves some time. That was a good example of what you want to do on this mission. You want to try to ride as many cars as possible to save time. Not really going to be noticeable in the time save here because unfortunately me failing the skip and then the robot not exploding wasted around 50 seconds on this split. Yeah, I don't remember this mission being particularly fast in this run, but you can save a lot of time by getting boosted on cars. You just gotta make sure you don't miss the litter because of it. You'll see I'm trying to stay in the lanes because that's where the cars go. But I did not get lucky in this run because of all the stuff that had gone wrong. And then now it's off to Moonhaven. Moonhaven probably has the coolest use of strats where you abuse hoverball. All it is the oil balloon mission, and then the water automaton is done entirely on this trip to Moonhaven. Moonhaven used to be entirely done before Monkitropolis, but then I realized, hey, we can save a lot of time by doing this. I fall off of the thing here and get to the gear. That's a really fast way of getting to the gear. And I'm actually going to use hoverball for the first 3 of these. And I messed up this first one a little bit. I got close to what I was trying to do. So unfortunately I got caught here in the rails. You want to not do that. But you can actually, if you stay on the rails, you can get up and climb up the gear like this. That saves a lot of time. And you don't need a hoverball for this one, I believe, but it's a lot safer just to do that. And this last one is fairly tricky. I believe I messed it up in this run a tiny bit. But you just go a little bit over here, and you can jump onto the rails that are halfway there and get a bounce over to the thing. I got caught in the rails there, but I managed to get out pretty quickly. Camera played tricks on me, but it was all good. And then this one, I don't know why it's located where it is, but you just kind of ride the gear to get to it. I don't really know of a faster way to reach it, and it's close to where I need to be next anyway. Alright, so the water automaton would be done earlier, but the mission where you actually thaw the things out is a lot faster if you have hoverball. So I started out just by doing the donation. And I'm going to grab a couple bunches on the way to the mission. And then I skipped the entire first section of Woodball just by hovering straight to the thing you thought, because the fire is there anyway. Grab a bunch. And you gotta be a little bit slow when you go around these, because otherwise the things won't completely thaw. And then I do this section a bit strangely. I jump straight to the end and then go backwards, because normally you're supposed to use Woodball to do these all one at a time. But I go and I turn all 3 of the things at the start, so I can just use the Woodball once and carry it throughout. And I use it there so I don't have to go way out of my way later to use it. Didn't turn on as much as I wanted to, so I had to adjust a little bit. Unfortunately, when you turn these things, you don't move with them. So you're usually supposed to be in the center so you don't notice that. But if you're on the bridge, you can move it a little bit before you fall off. And I believe I messed up thawing this one a little bit in this run, so I had to go around an extra time. Oh, right, I lost the fire there. Touch the water, and then this part didn't thaw enough. This was a fairly large time loss on my part. The way these work is that you have to thaw the ice that's touching the center, and when some of it's gotten small but not completely dissolved, it's kind of hard to tell what piece of ice is actually causing it to not work. So you kind of just have to have an eye for what is still touching it if that happens. And this mission, of course, is pretty straightforward. You just gotta kind of survive a minute with one of these torches being lit at all times. And I try to get back to the land before the mission ends, so I can chant as soon as it's available. But you really don't want to go too early because the mission can kind of troll you and immediately hit all three at close times at the end, and then you just lose a minute. And then it's off to Monkitropolis to finish it off. Very small thing at the start here. I don't actually know if this saves time, but I like it, so I do it. You can just kind of run full speed at this tiny little slope and bounce straight up this wall. It's really cool. And then the rest of this mission is pretty much straightforward. So now it's time for the second trip to Jungle Island. It's kind of weird the second trip to Jungle Island is so close to the end, but I do it here because it's pretty easy and you have no reason to not do it before you have Hoverball because, well, it's slower to do it before you have Hoverball, so why would you do it before you have Hoverball? I mean, if you really wanted to, you could do the rock jump again, but I prefer using Hoverball for this, personally. Instead of dealing with that garbage more than an hour in. I do use Hoverball right at the start of this section to skip climbing around a little bit. Saves a couple seconds. And then I fly straight to the mission. And I actually just recently started doing this new strat for the Lighthouse mission here. It's actually a variant of what I saw in J. Cool's current full completion world record. It's a bit faster though. So I just run backwards and bounce off of this flower super fast. And then I have to go around because that door is not open. And I just go and burn down the gates to get to the end of the island fast, instead of climbing around normally or shooting a cannon. And that saves a few seconds of what I used to do, which was the cannon shot. And then of course the rest of this is just going to be exactly how it's intended to be done. And then it's off to Zootopia, which I screwed up the entrance here pretty badly, specifically the last mission. So the first thing I do here is learn Invisible, which I'm actually going to use the learning of Invisible to save a little bit of time in a second. But first I do Post-commentated mission. It's worth noting you don't actually have to climb all the way to the top, but it's tricky to do. But I don't know why the game is making weird noises, but I don't question it at this point. And here's where I'm going to use Invisible when you might not expect it. So using a chant and having the chant monkey do his disappearing thing actually skips a text box. So I use Invisible here on the really long text box where he introduces himself, and that saves a very small amount of time. And then you can use the chants and unchants as soon as the sparks appear from his wand. So if you know when the sparks appear, you're good. Using Invisible there screws up the camera though until you do the disappearing. So it's kind of annoying because it's kind of hard to see the sparks. But if you follow the text and you know where the sparks appear in the text, it doesn't really matter. And like I said, I did screw up this area pretty badly, specifically the dunking booth mission. So there's a skip in the dunking booth mission using hoverball. The game, when you unchant, the game won't actually register that you're visible and in the mission until his text box saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" after saying "huh?" appears. So you can unchant Invisible and quickly use hoverball to jump to the end. But I was very slow here, so I actually had to do a second stop here, which wasted a lot of time, and I accidentally used woodball somehow. I don't really know what was up there. But I was supposed to make it up to the top in one trip, but I had to take two because of that. Just as long as I'm back invisible by the time the second text box pops up, I'm fine. But I did have to be careful here, because the mission you'll lose the mission if you bump 3 times, and each of those does count as one time of him being suspicious. Typically, if you trigger your third incident of being non-invisible, when you knock down the third monkey, you'll be fine as long as you don't bump any of them. But I played it safe there. And the maze here is where you save a lot of the time by using hoverball. Especially with Alawat's mission, the 8 balloons. Because you can fly over the entire maze pretty much if you know where to jump. I also needed to get a lot of bananas at this point because I was a bit behind. I didn't want to get punched by that guy. So the way I do this naysayer is I punch him once and I start the Alawat mission, punch him again, and I grab the bananas from the pots, and then I go and actually, once I kill him, I do the actual balloon gathering. The order you get the balloons does not matter at all, but I have a particular order I typically go in. Also, apparently chanting is hard, because I failed it a couple times there. I like to start with the one in the bumper car area, just because it feels like a nice starting point. And then you can give him the balloons when you're hovering. If you're falling down, it's a lot easier because the balloons will have some negative Y velocity. And you can grab this balloon right on the edge like that without falling off. That saves a little bit of time, even if you have to position yourself a little bit. I go for the tightrope one next, which unfortunately in this run I fell off of the tightrope, which made me lose 10 bananas, which at this point that's not good because there are not really backup bananas at this point. So I kind of had to wing my banana collection a little bit to make sure I had enough at the end. You can pretty much just follow here and see the path I take for balloons now. It's pretty straightforward. You can see I tried to get that banana there because I was kind of paranoid about not having enough. With hover balls, you can kind of just fly over them a lot of the time, like I did with that one. You can jump over this part of the wall. When you're going up that ramp like that, it helps because you have some line momentum already. And you'll see here, when I'm getting the balloon from the tree, I get the naysayer spinning, and then I grab the balloon, and then I hit the naysayer so I don't have to wait for him. Saves a little bit of time. Had some issues with the walls there. Controlling with hoverball while maneuvering the camera isn't exactly the easiest thing to do. And on the trip to the last one, I decided to get the bunches over there, which are usually backups, which I desperately needed at this point. Tried to get that banana there. I just got it later though. You can see me, I was really having trouble with the walls at this point because I was focusing on where I could get backup bananas instead of jumping. And I really had trouble with this wall. Usually I try to be not hovering by the time that mission ends, but I have to get over the wall for that to happen. And of course hovering is a lot faster than just going through the maze normally. You can skip straight to this area, not on the wall but on the ground next to it without hoverball, but obviously hovering over the wall is faster than going around. And then as far as this mission goes, I just use hoverball to get to the furthest away banana to get started. And then it's pretty much just sticky ball throughout, not really much interesting going on. There are a lot of bananas during this mission though, so that's something. It's also nice to not do this mission at the same time you do the bumper cars, because it is rare, but it has happened to me in runs when this was done earlier, that when you do the bumper car mission, if one of the bumper cars ends on the banana peel, then you can't actually grab the banana peel and you have to leave the area and come back, which obviously loses a lot of time. So that's really nice to not have to worry about. The only thing you have to worry about with the bumper cars in terms of that is making sure they don't block the exit, which is also a realistic threat that has killed my runs before. Yeah, at this point I was pretty much good on bananas, because there are a lot in the area of Jungle Island that you do at the end. There's actually an extra bunch I didn't even have to get, so I was a bit overly paranoid. Yeah, I do Papa's mission here because you can end it next to the entrance to the tree area, which is obviously better to do now than when you're trying to get to the lighthouse area. Really the most important thing here is just to know where the things are. Go ahead and end boxing ball there because it goes away when you bounce on the flower anyway. And then I go ahead and unchant and use hover ball when I'm going for the last one. You don't need to use hover ball to land over there, but it's really easy to not make it and fall, so I just use it to be safe. And I've had it happen that the mission just didn't end because I was too far away or something similar to that. I don't really know what caused it. So I kind of linger there for a little bit to make sure the mission actually ends. And when I kill the naysayer here, I use hoverball before I get to him, and then I jump over to get to the text box. You can get around the naysayer without jumping over him, but if you do that, then you have to wait a little bit before you can use hoverball because you talk to the guy. So I use hoverball before I jump over him. And falling out, I mean, in a particular area here makes you respawn right next to the entrance that we want to take. I was a bit slow there, but it was alright. And then at the very end here, minor skip. I actually use hoverball to climb the first and third sections of the branches that you climb. Because they are sloped enough that you can just do that instead of using sticky ball. The second one isn't sloped enough that you can do it, and I haven't found an alternative to it, so just gotta climb it like normal, unfortunately. And this one's kind of tricky. I just kind of jump over the fence here. You can actually just clip through the fence, but it's a bit risky. I typically use it as backup. So yeah, this is the my current PB for this category. I just wanted to do a post-commentary so that there would be a decent commentated 100% run for anyone who wants to see and understand what exactly is happening. Because I'm going to beat this eventually, at least I plan to at the moment, but I don't want to focus on it right now because I've been grinding this for a bit, and grinding this category is hard. So that is Super Monkey Ball Adventure Story Mode 100% in 1:23:34. And I'll just let the cutscenes play out now. Yeah. Thank you for watching.